Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. It's an absolutely gorgeous Monday morning here. I love it because it's autumn and it's a lot cooler, especially when you get up in the morning and you're off to gym. You don't feel like you've already had a workout before you get to gym. Welcome and thanks for joining in for the live broadcast. It's going to be a different kind of morning this morning, or evening if you're overseas. I've had a really lovely lady message me some questions, and so I thought I'd help us understand the process of what's happening in our brain when we get the overwhelm. And the overwhelm comes when we've been triggered. It comes through many circumstances in our life, so it's all individual, but I want to unpack it for us, because as we unpack it, we're able to see the different facets as they appear in our life, and as we see them appear, then we can learn how to manage them. We can learn how we want to sit back and we want to address them as adults. So I'll just grab our infographic this morning because it's got the question and the outline for the answers on it. Now, if you want to take notes, please feel free. If you'd like to send me a question, just post message me, it's not a problem, or ask down below. I'm always happy to answer them as soon as I can. And welcome to the start of a new week and, the next part of our recovery journey. Okay, so I've got a question today, and I was asked, when I'm given instructions, I often feel like it's too much on my brain and may ask several times for it to be explained. I used to think it had to do with intelligence. And that's a really valid point, because we feel like if I'm not understanding what somebody's asking me, then I must be dumb. And it's not the truth, okay? Well, I say that and then my brain goes, shoots off left of centre and thinking, well, maybe I am, and yeah. I'm not a comedian, so I won't turn it into a joke. So, what do we need to know about that particular circumstance in our life? So, somebody's speaking to us and we literally either don't hear or don't understand what's happening or what they're asking us, and it is very, very hard for us to process what's been said. Sorry, I'm just organising things so I don't tip anything over. Okay, so the first thing we want to understand is the brain development side of things. And we need to understand this because it takes the pressure off us believing that it's all my fault. So remember, one of our core beliefs coming out of adverse childhood experiences is, I am to blame. It's all my fault. So first of all, be aware if that's what you're feeling, because it will impact your ability to listen and to hear what's being asked of you or what's being relayed to you. And sometimes our memory doesn't kick in so that we can process it. I don't know about you, but I find when somebody asks me something, I literally have to repeat it in my mind so that I'm comprehending what's being said in a number of ways. It could be just me. But I find that I do that repetitively in my mind so that I'm really understanding what the person's saying. And sometimes that can come in from our lack of social development in our younger years. And I know that we sit back and we observe everybody, so we try and understand all the social engagement. It's not easy. So even as adults, when somebody's asking us something, we have to be aware of, do I know this person and do I feel comfortable being able to be me? Am I going to be able to speak up and say, look, my cognitive function, okay, so the order, so remember our amygdala and our prefrontal cortex only work together when the limbic system is still in place. So if we're in emotional dysregulation, so we're feeling, a bit chaotic on the inside, things aren't balanced, I'm not able to focus fully on that person and what they're asking, then I have to develop this awareness within myself. Am I holding my breath? That's the first thing. Am I holding my breath? And then you can begin to understand that whatever's happening around you, your brain has been triggered and it just doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't have to make sense because remember, in our amygdala are all the fragmented parts that didn't get processed into the filing cabinet. That's our hippocampus, okay? So we've got to, as adults, develop this inner awareness in order that we can then take back, not control, but we can then begin to process how we need to understand what's happening around us. Now, when we were a child, okay, what they call the primal part of our brain, the primitive part, way back here in the brainstem, developed with the sense of fear. Okay, so when we have things come into our life, our first response isn't, this is manageable, it's a fear response. We can't change that response. It was developed in our childhood. What we do is learn. We have to teach ourselves. It's not something that will ever come automatically to us. It'll develop out of a habit, but we have to learn to say, this is manageable, okay? Now, as we're looking at, as I've just mentioned, as we're assessing our surroundings and we're becoming aware of the dysregulation, we also have to give ourselves a break and understand that part of recovery is redeveloping our memory. And we can do that, absolutely. I lost all my memory. Part of regaining our ability to have memory is working with trauma-informed movement. Okay, so that's part of it. But some of the other things that we can do to develop our memory, which helps us remember what somebody's just asked of us, is to do some brain training as well online. I did brain training when I went to study to be a counsellor. I did the brain training to help get all the inner workings working together again. And it does work. It does open our memory up. The other side of, and when I say open our memory up, I don't mean it opens our memory up to the past at all. I mean, it simply gives us back that brain function to remember. And that's part of what happens in the processing in our brain is when somebody asks us something, we need to be able to remember what they've said. Another side of the processing in our brain is that our senses throughout our adverse childhood experiences, our senses became blunted. Now, I was thinking about this the other day because one of the things that I have is this obscene amount of smell, okay? When something smells, I can smell it before anybody else. And I thought, well, how does that work if my senses are blunted? And then I remembered that people who have disabilities in certain areas say that their brain makes up for them in other ways. And I went, well, how's that apply to our hearing? And I went, well, for me, it can be challenging to hear the order of what somebody says. Okay, so I have to really concentrate on the order of what people say to me, especially if I'm tired. It's really hard to keep the processing going, and it literally is. You know, you see those, there's videos of people who make everything move, one thing after another, and actually just picture dominoes in a row and they fall over together. Well, if you picture your hearing like that, and the order of the words all fall over together and flow, you'll find that, I definitely find that if I'm tired, there's no flow to what people say to me. I have to literally take each word. It's like I literally take each word and sew them all together in order that they make sense in my brain. And that might sound really funny to somebody who's not got complex PTSD, but it's just what we do to retrain our brain in order to have those conversations. We're not stupid. We're retraining our brain back into day-to-day life, okay? Now, one of the things that's really helped me over the years is to write things down in an order. I can't and I've lost the word, but emphasise enough the ability for us that we have to regain is putting things into an order. And we don't need to feel ashamed that we can't get it in an order. I find when I have conversations with my sons, they understand that sometimes I don't get it in an order, and I say to them, okay, look, we need to start at the beginning and help me understand what you're saying and help me put it in the order that you're trying to tell me. And part of that reason is because we're all on the spectrum and we're all different, but part of that also is regaining my cognitive function and my ability to put things in an order just like that, okay? So people who haven't experienced complex PTSD, it won't make sense to them. What do you mean put it in an order? Well, it's like this. I'm getting my prefrontal cortex to get back and re-engage with life. Okay, so I've got to put it in an order. We need to develop our self-confidence to speak up and say, hey, we don't have to go into the ins and outs, just say, look, I'm working on putting everything in order. I'm going to write this down and I just need you to show me or tell me, is this in the order that you want things done or need things, or is this how you've expressed it to me? Have I got it right? And the thing is, people are always willing to help. Always. Anyone with a kind heart is always willing to help if we speak up and say, this is what I need. And so develop that self-confidence to say, this is what I need. It does take time and it does take courage, especially when we're adults and we have this preconcept that we should have everything right and in order and be able to do this and this and this. Look, part of that's the perfectionism we came out of childhood in order to protect our heart. So work out whether that's happening for you and ditch the perfectionism. Go, listen, if I can go right, I need from point 1, 2, 3 and 4 to happen, then, and I can let you know that's what I need to do. It doesn't have to make sense to the other person. It's just, this is what I need to do for my recovery. Okay? And the more that you're able to be courageous and open up, the more it develops your courage and also self-compassion. Have some understanding that it wasn't your fault what's happened, but we can, with really good strategies, put everything back together and make life a joy as well. We want to do some trauma-informed movement so that our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala get used to working together again. Okay? Especially for me, when everything was so shut down, it takes time. So our brain and our body have got to learn to work together and to feel safe to do that. So one of the things that I'm developing at the moment is a class for trauma-informed movement. And as we do the class, you'll find that it's not easy. We become aware that we've got to include our breath in it. So throughout all of this, the different things, choose one thing that you want to work on, just one. And over this week, make notes of where you're working on it and how it's unfolding for you, what you want to do, what you need to do, and where you need to find the courage to speak up and say, look, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that. Can I just write it down? All right? Because when we engage our eyes, there's so many, I call them fibre optics, because it reminds me of all the fibre optics. They go right back to our vagus nerve so that we need to become comfortable with seeing things as well so we don't get the fear trigger happening. So when we write things down, it gives us that comfort within ourselves that, right, I've got this written down. And for me, I do 3 things. So I write down my top 3 things that I'm focusing on this week, and then I continue to just keep working on those things. I go and do the next thing, and I keep coming back to make sure that that's where I'm focused on, because it's so easy to veer off it and have somebody take our attention away. It is so easy. But in retraining my brain to have that focus, it becomes increasingly easier to go, right, I want to go back and refocus where I need to be as an adult. Okay? And look, if you're a parent, teach your kids this too. Ask them questions. What is it we're focusing on? Where do we need to go from here? I mean, obviously you're not going to say to a 2-year-old, where do we need to go from here? Use your language and age-appropriate language for them, but get them to help them learn how to retrain their mind and retrain their self-discipline into where they need to go from here. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Have the most gorgeous Monday. We're in autumn at last in Australia, and I love it. And remember, we're the turtles, we win the race. Okay? Blessings and dreams, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Bye for now.